Hello, we're back. It's Larry from LarryReddReads. Sorry I haven't made any videos lately. I've been really busy, uh, so I haven't had a ton of time to read. And the book that I'm reviewing today it's not like a super page turner. At least it wasn't for me. So it took me quite a bit to read it, which is a little too bad. But we'll get into that. Right now I'm in Snowmageddon, so I thought it would be a good time to finish this book up and talk about it. So I guess without further ado, the book is The Diamond Age by Neal Stephenson, kind of a cool cover. In this book, I have a lot to say about it. Some good, some bad. Let's start with the good. And the good sort of is a good way to get into what the book is about. The book has a lot of great ideas. The premise is that it takes place in the future in Shanghai and the surrounding areas, and a little across the world. But the idea is that society has progressed in a way that has been spurred on by crazy advances in nanotechnological devices. So basically, the world, it's kind of like a post-scarcity thing. Everyone in the world can sort of create anything they need with these like matter compilers that literally like compile little atoms piece by piece. And then the other big thing that's in this world that makes the book kind of cool and interesting is that the idea of like the nation state has sort of evolved differently. It's not based on like physical borders anymore, but more on like ethnic and social ties. Um, one sec. Okay, I thought I had to sneeze, but we're good. Anyways, so yeah, like the world is broken up not by like borders, but by sort of like social ties and stuff into these things called files. And every file, Phyle is how it's spelled in the book. Every file has like their own little enclaves like across the world. So in the book, it takes place in Shanghai, and there's like all these different files, all these different nation states, and one of the most important ones in the book is the New Victorians, who's basically like they're what they sound like. They're Victorian British people, but in this future nanotechnological world, and they control sort of the access to like the matter compilers. So they have a lot of power. They're a very powerful file. There's like a Japanese file. Uh, a like a Chinese file, anything you could think of. And then there are other people called beats, which are like people that are not in a file. They're sort of like the underclass, and that's our main protagonist. Nell is a Theet. But basically, the premise of this book, and what I think is the best part of it, is the name of the sort of alternative title. The book is also been printed as a Young Lady's Illustrated Primer. So the Young Lady's Illustrated Primer is this book, but it's more than a book. And it was commissioned to be made by like some hotshot guy in the Neo Victorian file. And he asked this engineer, this nanotechnological engineer, who's a big character in the book. His name is John Percival Hackworth. It's another thing this book does well. It has fun names. But anyways, this guy John Hackworth, he designs this book for this lord in the Neo-Victorian file. And this book, it's supposed to be like an education tool for young girls, and this lord wants it to be used for his granddaughter. But John Percival Hackworth, he makes a second copy of it without sort of illegally, and that's a big part of the book. And he makes the second copy because he wants to give it to his own daughter. But what ends up happening is somehow it gets stolen, and it ends up in the hands of a Theet girl named Nell. She's like 4 years old. She's super poor, not in a great family situation, but everything changes when her brother steals this book and gives it to her. And the book, it's like, I don't know, she kind of turns into like an iPad kid, but like the iPad is the young lady's illustrated primer, and it's like a really really good iPad. It's like got AI, and it can like teach her anything, and it teaches her a lot of lessons. And I think that's where this book really shines, is the parts where we're sort of reading the primer with Nell, and it has these really cute like fairy tales that relate to Nell's life, and just the way that the book describes how the primer is like told to Nell is really interesting. In the future, a big part of this book, I think one of the most interesting themes is about theater. So uh, in the book that Nell reads in this book, it's kind of like a story within a story. Uh, the way it's read to her is by what's called like a ractor. So in the future, instead of like TV shows, which they call like passives, they have new things that they call interactives. And basically, there are these networks of actors and actresses that are called ractors that are like in these like warehouses and sort of talking to people through ractives, and that's a big part of this book. Is the person who reads Nell all these stories and interacts with her and plays characters with her. Her name's Miranda, and she's like a ractor, and she plays a big role in this book. And yeah, I think the fairy tales that are told to Nell through the primer are really, really fun and really good. I like it when sort of like that fairy tale genre is taken up by a sci-fi author and used in really creative ways. That was done, I think, really well in Death's End in the Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu. But yeah, let's stop talking about the good stuff because there's unfortunately this book it felt like it had so much potential for me, but it was just so difficult to enjoy just because of the way that the plot was set up. We zoom around from different characters, which is fine, but the way the plot is like designed, it's just really frustrating because it's just not easy to follow. Like Neal Stephenson, the author of this book, I think he's like allergic to like explaining things, and that's okay in some sense. I think it's fun for a reader to have to do some work, but I mean, he just really sort of just throws out random things and you just have to sort of guess at what's going on. And then he'll like introduce characters and then just like leave them for like 100 pages or never come back to them at all, which is kind of frustrating. He had like these great threads of ideas that could really make a super interesting book, but when he sort of wove them together, something went wrong in like the knitting process and it kind of got messed up. So yeah, it's so sad because I really wanted to like this book, and I do. I do like parts of it. I like the themes that it addressed. There's a lot of cool themes about like Western culture versus Eastern culture. A big part of the plot, without going into too much spoilers, is uh, sort of resistance to like the economic order of the world where the neo-Victorians have so much control over everything. And I thought it was really cool the way that the neo-Victorian society is analyzed throughout the book through Hackworth and then eventually through Nell. And I think it does a really good job as like a coming of age story for Nell because we follow her throughout her entire life and see her change and how she's educated with this like magical, not magical, but AI sort of book. And I think that's a cool thing that relates a lot to the world today is, technology becomes a teacher in many cases. And I think it's a cool story in that way. But I really wish that Stevenson really focused more on that part and didn't add in all this other stuff that I think just sort of made like I think if the book just focused on Nell, I think it would have been a lot better, at least in my opinion. He sort of adds a ton of different plot lines that are very confusing and sort of interwoven, not in a way that makes a lot of sense. A lot of just inexplicable things happen for the plot, and the ending is just very rushed. Like it doesn't really feel like you're building up to anything. But I don't want to be too hard on Neal Stephenson. Like I say, I like to give books positive reviews because, like, I don't know, what if he sees this? What if Neal Stephenson sees this and he's sad? I don't want him to be sad. So, for that reason, we're going to give the book a 3 out of 5, not just out of pity, but because it does have a lot of good stuff. It has a 3 out of 5 review from me. If you're not super into sci fi, I definitely would not recommend this book. If you are super into sci fi and the ideas of this book sound interesting to you, I would recommend it. I think it's got some cool themes, for sure. But yeah, I guess now, before I leave you, I'll be talking about what I'm going to be reading next. Because everyone wants to know, probably. What I'm going to be reading next, this was actually gotten as a birthday gift for me from a friend of mine. She sent me this book through the U.S. Postal Service, so shout out to them. I appreciate all their hard work. And the book, it's not something I would probably read if I hadn't gotten it as a gift, but I think I'm gonna like it. It's called The Guest Room by Rona Halsall, an utterly unputdownable psychological thriller. So definitely something quite different than the Diamond Age. So I'm kind of excited for something like this. I love mystery, but I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, but I haven't read a lot of thriller or mystery books in a long time. But yeah, I mean this book, pretty cool. The little tagline: "You think you're safe in your own home, you're wrong." So hopefully I don't get too spooked. But yeah, I'm excited to read that, and I'll get back to you with my opinions on The Guest Room by Rona Hall Saul. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good day.